Negative mindset and negative self-talk limits what an individual can do. In any given situation, people who have a negative mindset will be saying so many things to themselves. And you've got an image here that gives you an example of the sort of things they say to themselves. It can't be done, it's a waste of time, why bother? And if your clients are aiming for success in their lives and careers, and they suffer from a negative mindset, we don't, as coaches, we don't want them to join the ranks of those with serious mental health issues, because that's where it can lead. So our role is to support them in finding ways to shift from negative self-talk into positive. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. I will touch on a few concepts and management theories, but I won't go deeper into them. I'll mention them and we'll share the slides afterwards so you can do your own research and choose the one that you think will be most useful to you. And I think we can start. Yeah, so let's get started. So what I found interesting was this statistic from the National Science Foundation, that the average person has 60,000 thoughts per day. And out of those 60,000 thoughts, 80% of them are negative, which is just remarkable. It really is. 80% of them are negative. Okay. So when COVID started, I actually became depressed as well. And so I worked with my team to come up with a series of images, which I'm going to be showing throughout this presentation, to shift the mindset from negative to positive, which is why when I was asked to do this talk, I thought that was ideal. So the first thing many people are struggling with is I'm stuck at home. And there are so many other ways to look at it if you have a different mindset. From I'm safe at home, to I finally have time to do things at home. I have lots of projects. You know, there's so many ways. And I'll be introducing us to how we can, ideas about how we can reframe our own minds and how we can reframe our clients' minds as we're going forward. Okay, so moving your client's prism from negativity to positivity. What I advise as coaches is most of us have our own preferred approach. But when you come up against someone with a negative mindset, the more senses and emotions you incorporate into your coaching, the greater the likelihood of success you will have. Because they might be listening and understanding with one part of their brains, but it's really not penetrating, okay? So they may see the sense in what you're saying, but the shift might never happen. So if you can use as many senses and emotions as possible, it would really help. What you want them to do is embark on a journey of self-discovery, okay, to increase their self-awareness. Let them see the way they even see the world. Many of them are not aware that they see the world a certain way. So they need to see their mindset. And then let them see, you know, take them through some critical thinking, sort of logical sequences. This mindset that you have, if you see the world this way, and therefore you interpret events that are happening to you this way, okay, where would it logically, where would it lead you? And don't give them the answer. Let them answer it for themselves. And they'll see that actually, I don't want to end up there. And if what's causing it is the way I see the world, I don't want to see that world, the world that way. I want to have options. So you want them to get them to a place where they accept that there are other ways of being, there are other ways of seeing, there are other mindsets that are possible to have, and then be willing to make the shift, because they are the way they are for very, very good reasons. I'm going to be referring to NLP a bit. For those of you not familiar with NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming. It's described as many things, but I like to describe it as the science of being a successful person. And helping people get to the point where they're willing to make a shift is very, very important. And sometimes this whole journey we're talking about of seeing what your mindset is, acknowledging that there are other ways of seeing the world, you know, accepting there are other ways of being, and being willing, can be summed up in what is, NLP has several presuppositions, and one of them is called the map is not the territory. You'll see an image there about with the glass half empty, and it's almost become a cliche these days, but it's still really, really powerful, okay? Which one are you generally? It's not all the time. generally, do you see situations as half good, as mostly good, or do you see what is missing from the situation as incomplete? Do you see things as mostly complete or as incomplete? You know, that really will give you a hint about your propensity to have a negative mindset or not. If you do see the glass as half empty, that's not a negative thing, because it means you're the perfect team member to identify opportunities for change, opportunities for improvement. But if your whole perspective is slanting in that direction, it could lead to a negative mindset. So you need to be careful about that. So talking about the map, here are two maps of the world. One of them is, this was taken on March 14th. One of them is the COVID map, which is the one at the bottom. It shows the parts of the world where they had a lot of the highest prevalence of COVID infections, according to on March 14th. And the other map was something that people brought to my attention, and it's the map of where the prevalence of malaria infection is. And some people have said, if you overlay these maps one on top of the other, you will see that there's almost a perfect fit. There's almost a perfect fit. And it got me thinking, it got me feeling very optimistic about COVID, simply because instead of looking for where the COVID prevalence was, you could then decide, let me look for where the COVID prevalence is very low. So there are very many ways of looking at the world. And we're seeing that with this crisis too, people are seeing the world in many different ways. Some people have decided to see it as a world, as nature resetting, you know. So depending on the way you see it, that will affect how you feel. So that is the power of your mindset. And remember, a mindset doesn't have to be fixed. You can have more than one, you can shift from one to the other. So I just decided to bring that map in. So some people are really worried about falling sick, but you know, you could decide, hey, I'm not sick now, and I'm going to do everything I can to stay fit so that I will not become sick, and I'll come out of this better than I entered. So it's all about our mindset. So let's go to reframing. Okay, how do we reframe? What's reframing about? Reframing is about tapping into your client's emotional well, making an emotional connection with them. I don't know if you can hear all those beeps, but making an emotional connection and discovering what it is that is restraining your clients. Everyone has positive intentions for what they do. And if a person is a certain way, it's because at a certain point, it was the best way for them to be. And perhaps that situation has changed and they haven't. I had a bad neck for a long time, and I went to see a physiotherapist. And the physiotherapist told me, oh, you must have had trauma in your neck at some point. And I said, no. And she said, no, think, I can tell you definitely had trauma in my neck. And then I remember that an occasion about 6 months before where a car had bumped into my own car from the back, and I had some whiplash. And that was a trauma I hadn't realized. And she said, when that trauma happened, my brain sent a message to my muscles, my upper back muscles, and told them, hold on, guys need to seize up to protect the neck. And my muscles seized up to protect the neck. And the message, when the trauma disappeared, never came back to say, okay, it's all right to relax now. And so my muscles were still seized up. And that is very much why certain people have a certain way of seeing the world, because something happened. And at that moment in time, it was the best response. But then circumstances have changed, and yet their response remains the same. So it's really important to uncover what is that safety net that your client is clinging to emotionally that they might not even be aware of, that's restraining them. And then introduce alternative perspectives, not necessarily you suggesting, by asking questions about what other people are like. They will come up with alternative perspectives themselves, and then you help them connect those perspectives with themselves and support them in making the mindset shift. It's really, really, really important. So another reframing, people so scared of ending up in hospital. But hey, if you end up in hospital, we've got our isolation centers now. I've got a brand new one in Unicon Stadium that will look after you very, very well. You'll receive care. And most of us, even if we do catch COVID, will have mild symptoms, and we should be able to stay home and ride it out on our own. So let's shift our mindset. So at work, how can we help our clients reframe? There are some useful exercises I'm going to introduce, but before I do that, I want to hammer on one particular point, which is what we call the debrief. So anyone who's a trainer or a facilitator will know what a debrief is. What we do is we do an exercise or an activity or a team building game with your clients. And after the activity has ended, you sit down with them and ask them, so what happened? What did you think of that activity? How does that activity, what you learned from that activity, relate to your life? How does what you experienced in that activity relate to how things happen at work? That debrief part of it is really essential. And if you're reframing, helping someone reframe, you have to go into a debrief with them so that they can think through and process what happened by themselves, come to a realization themselves, and decide to make a change themselves. With reframing, it cannot be from the outside in. It has to be from the person themselves to themselves, speaking to themselves. So the debrief is really, really essential. So what I suggest is when you do any of these exercises that I'm going to propose, make sure you do a debrief afterwards. When the session is ending, give them an assignment to do so that they can practice this new skill, or develop a new habit. And then when you have your next coaching session, make sure you reconnect by asking them what happened with that specific exercise during the week. What has happened, what has shifted in their experience. And sometimes they'll say nothing, but very often they will have very profound stories to relate to you. You need to be very, very, very observant of the body language. When it comes to reframing, you will find that what the client is saying with their mouth, with words, and what they're saying with their eyes and with their body language can be very, very different. And you need to pay attention to what their body language is saying, not so much their words. Okay, so be very, very attentive and tweak as you're going along. So I recommend everyone to take an NLP course because it teaches you to be very, very observant of body language and to be able to read and understand exactly what the different things you're seeing are. And Ade Martin's on the line, so I might give him a few minutes to talk about it if I finish on time. Okay, so another reframing. Some people complaining, I can't go to work. Yeah, many of us can work from home. And if you're in essential services, you are absolutely working. Okay, so we don't have to look at it that way. So first thing you have to do as a coach is practice your inquiry skills with open questions. And then probe. Never accept the superficial answer that your client gives you. When have you felt optimistic and positive? And they say, oh yeah, when I was on holiday. So what about the holiday made you feel that way? We went on a walk, we went to visit some tourist sites. Okay, what about visiting tourist sites made you feel that way? Try and really probe to get down to what was it. And they'll probably tell you, I just felt carefree. I had a sense of freedom. I was with people who really care about me. I experienced things I never imagined. You need to get down to that level. So probe and probe deeper. That is really our role as coaches. And some clients have a very, very low level of self-awareness. So when you ask them, when have you felt inspired? They'll think and think and think, and they can't come up with anything. They can't think of a time when they were inspired. And so you might have to suggest examples. But you've got several degrees. You told me you just got a certain job. How about when you graduated? When didn't you feel inspired when you graduated or happy when you graduated? How about you told me you really value your romantic relationships. How about when you met your significant other? Okay, and give them homework, give them assignments, especially people with low self-awareness. Tell them to go and ask the people around them. If they don't know what they're good at, they should go and ask the people around them what they're good at or what they admire about them and come back, write a list and come back to the next session with that list. You'll find that is very, very powerful. Okay, the other important thing about reframing is introducing your client to the judge and the victim. So to those of you for whom the judge and the victim are a new concept, both of them are us. We are the judge and we are also the victim. We have part of us inside our heads who has a certain standard for what we should be like, what a good woman is like, what a good man is like, what a good employer is like, what a good employee is like, what a good anything is like, mother, whatever. And the other part of us is the victim. That's the real us. And the judge will flog us anytime, anytime we don't match the standard that we have set as the good enough standard. So it's really important in your coaching that when they come in, you tell them that this is a no judgment zone. And a no judgment zone means you as the coach will not judge them in any way. And you as the coach will not allow them to judge themselves in any way. So you have to listen for any judgmental statements they're saying about themselves. And each time you catch them saying it, bring it to their attention, force them to rephrase, okay? And sometimes before you do that, just listen. Just let them talk and you'll pay attention. You'll hear all the labels. You'll hear all the statements from the judge, all the ways the judge is battering the victim. And you need to note down all those labels, all those words, all those phrases to use to feedback and show a mirror to your client about this is what you're saying to yourself. And then challenge the basis of their beliefs. So if the judge is saying you're not a good mother, for example, you can ask them, okay, what does a good mother do? Okay, and write them down and then ask them, okay, this one, do you do it? And most of the time they'll say yes. Okay, how about that one? Do you do it? And they'll say yes. And so why do you think you're a bad mother? So you really need to challenge the basis, their own basis, not your own basis. And then if you find out that the judge is so overpowering and your client feels so de-victimized, it's time to recommend that they go for therapy. That's not for coaching. Okay, so in the slides I've put the power of debrief that what you should do when you're debriefing, and also giving them homework, reading up some self-help books that will help them identify exactly what they're doing to themselves and what they're experiencing. It's a quote from Steve Covey: when you show great empathy for others, their negative energy decreases and is replaced by positive energy. And that is when you are more creative in solving problems. So as coaches, I have found many coaches go straight into problem-solving mode with their clients or solution-oriented mode. It's really important that you start with the empathy. Start with an empathetic response before you move into probing, searching, critiquing, and then leading them towards coming out with a solution that they were ready to act upon. So I'm alone, I can connect with others. And I have found that I'm in both zones at the same time. I feel alone, even though I know I can connect with others. And even when I'm connecting with others, I know that I'm alone. That's the whole alone together concept that we're all living in COVID. But the important thing is don't feel totally alone. I've heard of some cases. One was just 3 days ago where someone just went radio silent and friends had to arrange for someone to go to her house with the police because they feared for the worst. And the person was simply just in the grips of despair from a very strong sense of aloneness. So it's very, very important that people realize that even if you're feeling alone, you can connect it with others and you should connect with others. So one of the exercises is called moving towards your excellence. And it sounds very simple, but it's so powerful. And when you do this exercise with people, sometimes they are moved to tears. And all you do is ask them to get a piece of paper, and at the top of the piece of paper, they write the number 1. And you ask them to write 3 to 5 bullets about where they want to be in 5 years. So if they're a millennial, 5 years might be too long. Okay, so you can ask them, where do you want to be in 2 years? Okay, ask them to write just 3 to 5 bullets. Where do you want to be in 3 years? And then tell them to come down on the page and write the number 2. And then write down, what do you think it will take to get you to that vision? What do you have to do? What do you have to do to get to where you want to be in that 2 to 5 years? And then you go down on the page again and tell them to write a number 3. And when they write the number 3, ask them to write down what it took them to get to where they are now and explore deeply if they can't think of what it took. And most of the time, you will discover with your clients that they have overcome a lot of obstacles to get to where they are now. And they might be overcome with feeling, with emotion about what they have gotten through, what they've gone through to get to where they are now. And when they look at what they've gone through to get to where they are now, compared to what they need to do to get to where they want to go to, there's no comparison. And they realize that it's doable. So this is an excellent exercise, moving towards your excellence. And it helps them reframe, realize that they have all the strength, all the power, all the resources they already need to get to where they want to go. It's already in their hands. They've already developed that in their journey to where they are now. Very powerful exercise. For those of you who think you don't have much to do, this is the time for learning. So I've just signed up for an online course. I won't tell you with who or where, but it was free. So I'm very, very happy about that. Labeling, another exercise, and this one is fun. So what you do is you get a sheet of blank labels. So the ones that you are sticky at the back, you can peel them off. They normally have 12 labels on a sheet. You give them a sheet of blank labels and tell them to write down a negative limiting belief, label, or nickname that they've been carrying around, either that were given to them or they gave to themselves. And each label, belief or label, they write on one of those blank labels using a marker. And have them stick the labels physically, peel the label off and stick it physically onto their bodies. And when they've stuck the labels onto their bodies, don't help them, right? Ask them how they feel. And they should be feeling pretty bad. And then tell them there's nothing stopping them from tearing off those labels, scrunching it up, and throwing them away. And work with them, encourage them, prompt them to do exactly that. Each one at a time. Take one off, scrunch it, throw it away. Take the other one, scrunch it, throw it away. It can be more powerful if you ask them to actually say it as they're doing it, as they're going along with it. And once they've removed all the labels, ask them how they feel. And then when you finish the debrief and they're going, the assignment you're going to give them is to catch themselves every time they use one of those labels during the following week, and repeat what they just did now, not physically, but mentally. Anytime they use that label for themselves, they're going to say, nope. They take that label, throw it out. An excellent exercise. Positive self-talk. People talk about positive self-talk a lot, but a lot of people simply can't do it because it's something you must have developed. Either the habit, because when you're growing up, you had a lot of people telling you positive things about yourself, or you were just fortunate you're in a nurturing environment. For people who weren't, it's almost impossible for them to make those positive affirmation statements. So they need support from their coach to do that. So tell them to write just one declaration about who they really are. Not who others perceive them to be, not how they perceive themselves to be, but how they really are and who they really are. And you can challenge them, and they can say, well, I'm just a whatever, and you can say, yes, but aren't you a CEO? Aren't you a something? So write it down. You might not feel like much, but actually, you're occupying a very powerful position. So write it down and help them come up with their affirmation. It doesn't matter whether they believe it or not, as long as the affirmation is true. And have them make that affirmation, that declaration to you. And make them repeat it until they say it in a way that you find convincing enough. And then give them the homework to repeat that declaration for the following week until they see you again, or for the following month, at least twice a day. Gradually, they will find it easier and easier and start to believe it, because it's a true declaration. It's not fake. So positive self-thought. So some people are thinking that, they'll be on drugs, but you have an option of what you take. You can take drugs, or you can take vitamins and good, healthy food, and go outside every day, even if it's sitting or putting your head out of a window and catching some vitamin D. Okay, so you have the power to do something. This one I really love. It's called baby talk. And what you do is you ask your client to come to your session with a baby picture of themselves. If they don't have a baby picture of themselves, as a toddler or an under 5, preferably. And whatever it is they're struggling with currently, whatever low self-esteem issue they're struggling with currently, whatever the judge is, hammering them with, tell them to repeat those statements to that picture of themselves as a baby. Tell your baby that your baby is worthless and useless and will never amount to anything. And of course, they won't be able to do that. So you're telling them that that child is still part of you. We grow old, to outward appearances, right? We get older and older, but inside, we're all our ages at the same time. We're still a baby, some part of us. We're still a teenager, some part of us. We're still a young adult, some part of us, right? And every time you're saying those limiting self-belief, those horrible things to each other, to yourself, you're harming that inner child in you and making yourself feel unloved. So this really shows them the extent of the damage that they're doing to themselves. And some people are really worried right now about what will the world be like after post-COVID. Many people think the world will be a better place. In Nigeria, for example, we will have better healthcare systems after COVID, for sure. So it depends on how you look at it. And then gratitude journaling, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's very, very popular and it's recommended a lot to lots of people. It really works. So definitely start doing gratitude journaling. Get your client to do it for 21 consecutive days if they can, because then they would have formed a habit of doing it. And even if they're not writing it down, mentally, they'll be in a place of being grateful for what they have every day. So gratitude journaling is essential. And what is important about gratitude journaling that I love especially is many of us are religious. So if you ask your client whether they're religious or not, gratitude is a very big part of every religion. So you can link that activity to their faith. And that makes it much more powerful and makes them much more willing to suspend their skepticism about writing, what I'm grateful for, right? Link it to something that's very important to them if they're religious people. And if they're not, make it part of their daily meditation or just good practice. And identity reframing is linked to labeling. So that labeling, when we put the stickers and they threw the stickers off. So what you need to do is, for some aspects of their personalities, you then ask them to reframe it. So I liked when the world became politically correct, I really liked some of the words, the terminology that they changed. If you recall, at one time they made cleaners, they renamed cleaners hygiene engineers and things like that. It really does work. So if there are some labels, because our clients are not Boy Scouts, many of them are successful people and they became successful by being tough. But rather than identifying, a client identified himself to me as, I'm a bit of a bastard, right? And I asked him, let's reframe that. Let's put it in a different light, right? Because a bit of a bastard means you're a horrible person. Okay, what does it mean? What is it that you do that some people consider you being a bit of a bastard? And he said, it's because I don't take any nonsense. I said, okay, so why don't you call yourself that? He said, well, a no-nonsense person. I said, yeah. Instead of saying I'm a bit of a bastard, you can say I'm a no-nonsense person. So you ask them to start putting new labels on aspects of themselves, of their identity, of their behaviors, which are also true, but cast them in a more positive light. Writing goals. So this one, management theory, leadership theory will teach you that anything you write down, you're more likely to do. There is a head-to-hand connection, just like there is a hand-to-mouth connection. That's why food that you eat with your hands, with your fingers, tastes sweeter than food that you eat with a fork and knife or a spoon. Okay, there's a head-to-hand connection as well. That if you have a goal, write it down with pen and paper, Tap it into your phone, onto your computer, print it out, stick it up. And, as you do your to-do list, and as you're accomplishing things and you're crossing them off your list or checking them off on your computer, it will give you a sense of accomplishment. And when you feel, oh my God, I haven't done anything this week, and you go back and you look at your list, you'll see, my gosh, I really accomplished a lot. A negative mindset can actually paint a false picture of how effective and how accomplished you are. So you can counter that with facts. Counter it with facts. Having your to-do list and you crossed off, keep a diary, and so on, okay? It will make you feel more confident. So one of the activities I recommend for this is like doing a time audit. That's part of time management. You do a time audit. Where am I spending my days? How much time am I spending doing what? Okay, and then prioritize that and start tracking, and you'll see that you actually accomplish so much. And when we say accomplish, it's not just work related, it's life related, right? What you accomplish in your entire life. We have so much to do. We might not want to do it all, but we definitely have more to, if we're looking for work, there is definitely work to do. So we don't have to be bored. We can be active and get lots of projects underway, develop or rediscover hobbies that we've had in the past. It's all about the way you look at things. And in closing, I'm getting towards the close now. A negative thinker generally sees a difficulty in every opportunity. And a positive thinker sees an opportunity in every difficulty. And they can be very annoying people, positive thinkers. Positive thinkers, please allow negative people to experience a bit of negativity and despair and all the rest of it before you pull them out, right? But I think we can all acknowledge that a negative mind can't really give you a positive life, because a negative mind shows everything in a negative light, including yourself. So while you might have a critical mindset, you might be a quality assurance person, you always see what is missing, okay? That is no reason for you to have a negative mindset. That is one of your strengths. Put yourself in situations where that strength is needed and where it will be valued, and use it appropriately for that purpose. Don't use it for absolutely everything else. And if you're conscious that that's what you do, hold yourself back sometimes. Talk to yourself and try to reframe as you're going along. Some people can't deal with ambiguity, with high levels of uncertainty. That's true, okay? And with the way technology is driving change in the world right now, it's going to be, the instances of that uncertainty and that ambiguity are just going to be increasing and increasing and increasingly. It's really the new normal. So it's something you need to migrate towards having a higher sense of comfort about. But at the same time, if you put it on the flip side, it just means that the possibilities are endless. Even now during COVID, there are some people who are attending webinars every day about the opportunities, new opportunities that have been created by this crisis. Business opportunities, career opportunities, job opportunities. So it just depends on the way you're looking at it. Some of us are only looking at how my business is going to be impacted, how it's going to die, the way I make my money is going to disappear. You could decide to look at it the other way. What else is out there? In what other way could I make a career, make a job? Maybe this is an opportunity for me to stop doing some of the things I didn't enjoy so much and seek other things that I have a greater passion for, okay? It just depends on the way you look at it. So I've got some references here, which I will share when I share the slides. And that is it. So over to Yinka for the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Habiba. That was fantastic. We really appreciate all your contributions and the value that you have added to the lives of coaches. We've learned a lot there. You've given us so much. In fact, I think we literally need to go back and listen to you again so that it sinks in. And I'm very sure that many of us will begin to apply most of the teachings that you have given us today in our approach to coaching. So thank you once again. That was really great. So we're going to open it up for questions. Yinka, over to you.
Thank you very much, Habiba. Thank you very much, Janet. So if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand using the hand raising icon on the participants list, and you see where to raise your hand there. And if you can't hear us or we can't hear you, just simply put your question in the chat segment, please, and we'll read it out to the facilitator. So the floor is open now for questions. Any questions? Anybody? Somebody?
Okay, let me start then. Habiba. Hello? Habiba, can you hear me?
I think she's frozen. I think her network is.
Yes, it looks like.
Okay, I can see Larry's hand up. Janet has the floor. However, due to technical difficulties with our internet, our facilitator, oops, she was frozen and now she's dropped off. So while we wait for her to come back, could you please just type in your questions in the chat segment before you forget it, or just write it down so when she comes back on, then you are able to ask.
Okay, Habiba, are you back?
Okay, yes,
Oh,
I'm
great.
back.
Okay,
Okay,
yes, she's
great.
back.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Okay,
so
Habiba,
Janet, go ahead.
yeah,
I see questions from
okay,
Juliet,
great.
Drew, Lanre, and Funke. So please just go ahead,
Yeah, I just
Janet,
wanted
and then
to
I'll read the question.
ask an open question. Basically, this is great, especially during the time of COVID that we have now. A lot of people having a negative mindset, feeling very anxious, feeling very afraid and uncertain. So you have a client that comes to you with all these apprehensions and they're really in a state of confusion. What's the best way to calm them down before you even start your session?
Okay. And by the way, since we're in a community of coaches, I would appreciate it if other coaches jump to my rescue every now and then. Okay, but what I'll say is most of the time, has this happened to you? Because it's rare that a client will come to you in that state. A coaching client will come to you in that state. So has that happened to you?
Well, I've come across an executive, a high professional executive, who came into the country, and the fact that she had to do self-isolation, she was already very, very anxious. So for her first 4 or 5 days, she couldn't even feel the earth. She was walking on a bubble. She was confused because she had a lot of, she's in the medical profession, patients
Yes.
that she couldn't reach out to. So she was extremely anxious. And of course, it's her business. So she was thinking of what she's going to do. And it was, well, I put her in a state of calm, and told her, look, at this point in time, just calm yourself down, be in this self-isolation state of mind, and everything will work well. After about that 4 days, she was okay. It's just because everything was confusing for her. And of course, she had a diary of things she wanted to do, and she had to abruptly stop. So it wasn't as if she was all over the place. She was just in a state of slight confusion. So it was just to put her in a state of calm.
Yeah.
In a state of calm first, before even talking about, okay, what exactly is worrying you. But I think after a while, she realized that she was not alone in this, and it was an unforeseen circumstance that hit everybody. So it wasn't born by her, so to say.
I mean, what I'll say is, and I'll say this for all coaches, especially the new ones, is if you have to spend the first 30 minutes of a 1 hour session just connecting and building rapport with your client, that is time well spent. It is their time. You know, the onus should be, and the focus should be on the client, on the coachee, not necessarily on you and what you want to accomplish in that hour. So do a check-in, what we call a coaching check-in. Ask them, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And they might they might go off, okay? And you know, you should have also set your ground rules during your contracting stage with the coaching. So you would have agreed if you can cut them off when they're talking, and other interaction patterns of interaction between the two of you. So in the course of the person going off, you can redirect. You can listen. You can hear words they're saying and say, "Hold on. Tell me a bit about this. Okay, really, let's go back. I heard you saying this and that," and you just help them deconstruct and process their thoughts. And they themselves, when they see you in a very calm and empathetic mood, will gradually match you. That's what about building rapport is. They might start off anxious and agitated, but if you remain calm, yet fully engaged with them and leaving them in control, gradually, when they feel that they're being heard and it's all about them, they should get to the point where they match you for your calmness. And then when they feel that, okay, I've got a handle on this now, then again you should check in with them again. All right, so do you want to continue? This is what we had planned to do today. Do you want to continue with this, or do you want to stay with where we are now and keep talking about this a bit more? Remember, it's all about the client centricity. It's not really about the coach. You can always postpone what you wanted to do with the client to another session. Or if you feel that you want, for me, this is the perfect opportunity to do pro bono, because they couldn't have the coaching session because they simply were not in a state of mind and really needed your help at that point. You could decide, okay, let's have a session tomorrow or later on this evening, and we'll go through what we actually intended to go through. But the important thing is to really be present with your client where they are, and you know, be their thinking partner, be their emotional processing partner, and really make it about them and not about you. And don't try to calm the client down. It's not about trying to calm the client down. The client will calm him or herself down when they feel they're being heard and they're engaging with somebody about the issues that are important to them. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Habiba. Okay, we have a question here from Juliet, and it says, how do you break down the coaching ideology to very successful and traditional employees?
Okay, so I've had to do this because I've worked with public sector executives for who had never even heard of coaching in the first place. So what I've done now is I've developed a little presentation, like a handout. So I do the presentation. It's called Introduction to, in my case, I do mostly executive and leadership coaching. So that's what it is, Introduction to Leadership Coaching. But for you, it could be introduction to whatever coaching it is. And you really break it down in really simple terms. You present it to them in a way that you can also tell them if you're not in the position to make a PowerPoint presentation, and you can give them a little handout. There is also, you can send them a clip on YouTube. There are Bill Gates. There's a very short clip by Bill Gates talking about everybody needs a coach. And who doesn't want to be like Bill Gates, right? And if you can also give them some names of some other people who are very successful who have coaches, you need to introduce them to the concept first and let them appreciate how useful it could be and how it could solve some of the challenges that they're experiencing before you move into, okay, now let's contract. Do you want me as your coach? You know, would we be a good fit? Do you want to start a coaching relationship? But sell the concept first in terms of the value that they can add to their lives by giving them examples of other people who are already very successful, who are still using coaches till today.
Okay, Juliet, I hope that answers your question. With that, I'll move to the next question, and this is from Adeyanju, and says, what do you do when clients already use the to-do list but beat themselves up? They beat themselves up for not getting through the list in a week or a day.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So this is what I love about coaching, right? It's because there are so many aspects of coaching. And one of the aspects that I love so much is the skill building aspect. So I'm actually currently doing some professional coaching for corporates. And we've only been given 4 sessions with them. And so we've been going through the sessions. And the third session was skill building for all of them. In the first 2 sessions, we found out what was going on with them, what they needed, what their challenges were, what their goals were, and so on, where they were struggling. And when we found out where they were struggling, then I came up with some skill building. Now, the skill building can be, you can do it if you have the skill, if you have the knowledge and the skill to deliver it. But if not, you can direct them to some videos about how to do it, or you can do your own research and find and tell them, okay, why do you go for a training session with so-and-so person or sign up for this? You let them know that there's a skill that they need to acquire. And I can tell you that almost everyone needs some skill building on time management, an aspect of time management. It could be prioritization. It could be aligning how you spend your time with your values. It could be like here, now you got a to-do list. And it can't be the same for everybody because some people can't get through their to-do list because they're not in control of their time. And if they decide they want some work-life balance, the only time for them to get through their to-do list is after work. And then their families are complaining, or they have other interests that they want to pursue, and they're angry with their workplace, so they're not ready to devote their out of work time to doing work. It depends on each client, but taking them through some time management principles, helping them prioritize properly, making them realize when they're overloading, they're being unrealistic. SMART goals is about being realistic. The R in SMART is realistic, right? Or A, achievable. So if you've got 20 things on your to-do list, it's going to be very hard for you to achieve. And they have a choice between whether they want to be an effective person or a busy person. I'll say some people are busy and some people are in business. So which one do they want to be? And sometimes as coaches, we can give them some tough love and challenge them in that kind of way. And if they say, as I've had some clients say it, look, I don't have a choice. I have to do all these things. These things have to be done. Then you can let them know, well, if it's you can't do it, who can you delegate to? If you don't have anybody to delegate to, who can you develop so that you can delegate to them? Have you alert flagged to your employer or your supervisor that you are overloaded right now and you can't, just challenge them that way, probe with them that way, ask them questions that way, show them that they have options. Saying that you're overloaded doesn't mean that you're weak, right? As long as you're delivering what's really important to your organization and to your boss.
Okay, Nyojo, I hope that helps. We're going to pause on the chat questions now. I'm going to move to voice questions. I see 2 hands up in the voice segment. I see Larry on Osanya's hand, and I see FAA. So I'll start with Larry. I'm unmuting you now, so you have the floor.
Okay. Hi, Habiba. Happy Habiba. Thank you so much for the session. I want to take you to the point where you talked about the judge and the victim. I think that was really well done. Just want to ask about where the person is playing victim and blaming everybody else. Blaming the government, management, industry, regulators, and they seem to just stay in that space of seeing how all of these other people, how they, when people do the they, them,
Yeah.
how they're doing all of that to them, and they tend not to see their piece in it. So it's, as a coach, sometimes it's a bit challenging because you want them to get to see themselves because you can see it, and how they sort of limit themselves with that, like some people get into the oh, Nigeria is this, therefore, but that, how do you have any thoughts on helping with that?
Yeah. Well, several things. I think a lot of that has to do with locus of control. So there are some people who wake up and get up, start their day, like now during the lockdown. They have no problem getting out of bed, doing their exercise at a certain time. They have no problem with that. And you have some other people who only get up out of bed when they have an appointment. So I have an appointment at 8 o'clock. It takes me 30 minutes to get dressed. And it takes me another 20 minutes to have my bath. And then I want to have something to eat. So I need to get up 1 hour, 20 minutes before the appointment to make the appointment. And that is when they'll get up. So they get up when there is a reason for them to get up. And so when we talk about locus of control, some people have it internally. They don't need any prompting. They don't need any deadline, right, to get up and do something. And some other people have an external locus of control. So people like this who tend to blame everything on other people. It can be several reasons, but let's just say it's nothing deep. It could be simply be a case of locus of control. They wait for things to happen to them and they respond. They're not that proactive. It could be that. So one of the exercises you can do with them, you can identify some exercises that help them realize that they are responsible for the choices that they make, and they are responsible for what happens in their lives. So a classic, I think I did that exercise during the happiness quotient seminar, where you tell the client, give me something you choose to do, one thing you choose to do, and one thing you must do. You remember that exercise?
Yes.
You make them write a list of things they choose to do in their life, and you get them to write another list of things that they feel they don't have a choice about, they must do in their lives. And then you challenge all the must-dos. And you challenge the must-dos by showing them that there are some people who don't do those things and they are still living their lives, right? So clearly, it's a choice that you're making. So when you let them see that they actually have a lot of control, for example, if you're a battered woman, if you're stuck in that sort of a marriage, you actually have a choice to stay there and suffer it, to stay there and fight it, okay, in whatever, and there will be consequences for that choice, or to leave and get help, or to leave and find your way. You have many choices, okay? And where you are now is because you've made a choice to stay and suffer it. So it's helping people realize that they actually have a choice. When they do nothing, they're still making a choice, and giving them that sense of, okay, I do have some control. I may have chosen not to do anything because the consequences are undesirable to me, or for me, they are too high. I can't live with the consequences. I can't live with my loved ones suffering those consequences. But as a result of that, I have made a choice. So sometimes when somebody says, oh, because the government did A, B, C, D, E, you can bring it down to their personal situation that, okay, so what are the options before you? You say, there's nothing I can do. There's no lights now. Hey, okay, maybe you can buy a candle. How about, do you have an inverter? Is there someone you know who has 24-hour lights that you can go and visit and do your work there? Let them know that there are other choices they could make rather than just living with what has happened as if they're completely helpless. So I don't know how helpful that would be to you, but if you do some research, you'll find there are some other activities and other exercises that help people gain a better and stronger sense of control over what is happening in their lives and over where they find themselves in their lives.
All right. Henry, I hope that helps. I think he has done that. Okay. Okay, so I see FAA. I'm unmuting you now so you can ask your question.
Yes, Chinka, that helps. Thanks.
All right, you're welcome.
So FAA,
All right,
who are you?
can you hear me? Habiba. FA is Falaki Adeni Adele.
Hi.
Very well. Thank you. And thanks for the presentation. Very practical tips that are really good takeaways. Okay, so one thing I wanted to say, the other time you were giving, somebody gave an example about somebody coming to them, really stressed. And I wanted to give a quick example about an executive who I was coaching, who came to me quite stressed on one of her sessions, such that she couldn't even concentrate. And what I went ahead to do as an NLP practitioner was that I actually used anchors, and we just sort of, I just asked her to shut her eyes, and I took her to, and I said, what's your most favorite place to go? And I know that she likes to travel, so what's your most favorite place? Thankfully, it was somewhere like a beach. So it was just about, close your eyes, where are you now? Let the wind go through your hair, feel, just feel yourself breathing. And believe it or not, I couldn't even coach that day. She just wanted to be in that state because it was so therapeutic, for her. She hadn't really gotten that alone time after a while. And that really just helped our sessions from that time henceforth. So hopefully that helps if you can really build an anchor for that individual, on where they can actually go to in their minds. So my real question is around a really tricky situation for an executive, and not necessarily the COVID period, where this executive has been coached many times, really smart, delivering in a multinational, right? And the individual is non-Nigerian, but they also know the benefits of coaching, such that they've actually started to use coaching as an excuse for, in quote, bad behavior. So when somebody brings up and points out the bad behavior, and like, well, we've had it with you, blah blah blah, then they raise their hands and say, oh, I'm so sorry, but I need coaching. I'm sure coaching is going to help me. And blah, blah. How do you get to the root cause of finding, so that you are not just going in there and saying, okay, well, write me my check and let me go, but the individual then keeps using that as an excuse, but you really want to get to the root of, okay, what, let's really unburden, and unlock a few things that's happening here. I'd like your thoughts on that.
Okay, so two very valuable contributions. So thank you very much for talking about anchoring in NLP. So I told somebody I learned coaching, straightforward coaching, a long time ago, and then it was 10 years later when I did my NLP practitioner course, and it just transformed my coaching practice and really took it very, very, because you learn activities like that are therapeutic. They do cross the line a little bit, and they're therapeutic without you having to become a therapist. You just help your client get into a better state, which is really excellent. So that's one of the reasons why I recommended coaching for people who want to do reframing, because reframing really is something that you need some skill, I think, to be able to do it successfully. So thank you. I recommend that to everybody. The person who's using I need coaching as an excuse. Now, I don't like coaching toxic leaders, because that's who you've described. You've described somebody who's a toxic leader, which is normally somebody who is excellent at their job, technically sound, very valuable member of the organization in terms of what the organization was set out to do operationally. But somebody who no one wants to work with, who might be a nightmare subordinate, who is definitely a nightmare boss, who you talent over, when you transfer good people to work with this person, they leave the organization, many of them. So that's a toxic leader. So I don't like working with toxic leaders. I think Jibola is on the line. Jibola specializes in toxic leaders, so she might be the best person to answer the question. But I once called her about it, about working with a toxic leader, and she told me that she found that 360 really works. I've had some success with it. Most of the time it's successful, not all the time. Sometimes the client's ears are just completely shut, and you'll just hear, well, that's their opinion, when they've got an overwhelming picture telling people this is how you are perceived, this is how you behave, how you come across to other people. But in general, when you do 360, And with somebody like that, it might be good to do an emotional intelligence 360 with that person. It can give them enough of a shock that because it sounds so true to them, they can't really escape the truth of the results that they're seeing. And it can give them a shock and cause them to pause enough that creates an opportunity for the coach to come in and really, help them move out into more productive and constructive behavioral patterns. But Jibola, I don't know whether you want to join the conversation or anyone else who works with the toxic leaders.
Okay.
Yinka, you might have to prompt them since you put them all on mute.
Okay, she's unmuted now.
Okay, hi Habiba. Hello everyone. Yes, with the 360s, I just sent a chat that I find that it works well, but only works with organizations that are quite mature and developed and are open, and they have a pretty high trust quotient. For organizations that maybe they've just had mergers or new organizations, or for me, public sector, you might not get the right feedback from 360s because, every leader is the best leader that you can find, and you probably won't have an objective feedback. So it really depends on the organization. But for me, I find that I call it the truth mirror. A lot of times that I've worked with it, a lot of leaders don't even know, they're not aware, they're just, they're not consciously conscious of what other people think about them or how they see them or how they show up in the workplace. So I've found a lot of success using that with certain organizations that I've worked with.
Thanks, Jibola.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks, Habiba and Jibola.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move to the chat questions now. I see a question from our boss, and it says, how do you help a client anxious about falling back into a drug habit?
I don't. I don't. I'm part of something called the intervention group. So we've got every flavor of therapists and psychotherapists and psychiatrists and psychologists on that group. And some of them specialize in substance abuse and things like that. So whenever there's a situation like that, I just refer the person straight to that. I don't even, and I tell them, once you've spoken to that person, come back and then we can resume with our coaching. Yeah, so I don't cross that line at all.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Habiba. And of course, I hope that helps. Next question. This is from Toyin. And it says, moving from negativity to positivity sometimes means a paradigm shift. What is required to create a paradigm shift on purpose?
What is required to create a paradigm shift on purpose? By the coach? By the coach?
It's not clear here, but I'm assuming it's by the coach.
Okay.
Yes, I'm assuming it's by the coach.
Yeah. So everything we do should be purposeful, honestly speaking. So, and that's the reason why many coaches are on their second careers, or at least they have some maturity in terms of work experience and life experience before you become a coach. We're in a real privileged position, and people are giving us the opportunity to help or harm them. So you have to be prepared. When you get do as much of research as you can. Generally, before I even start coaching, I do like a pre-coaching assessment to find out whether the person is even ready for coaching or if it's a person who needs coaching. If somebody's not even ready for coaching, right, there's not much point unless the person has been, it's part of a corporate program or a learning program where they've been assigned a coach. So you want them to be ready for coaching. And then when you do your contracting, you want to do your inquiry, really practice your inquiry. There's a questionnaire called the life quiz that I like to use a lot. It covers most aspects of a person's life. You ask them questions and it gives you a really good sense of where the person is. And the same thing with the Wheel of Life, which many people feel is really hackneyed. It might be a very old tool, but depending on the way you use it, it can give you a really good sense, all-round sense of what the person's life is like. You know, what's their state of mind, what their state of happiness or unhappiness, what their state of dysfunction is. So you really need to have done your homework with the client. And based on that homework, you would come up deliberately with the exercises that you feel the client needs. So reframing, moving them from negative to positive, it must have been something that you've identified that they need. And then you do some research about which tools or which methods you want to use to move them from that negative place to a positive place. It all has to be very, very, very deliberate. And then make sure you're doing your research, make sure you're signing up for webinars, make sure you're sharpening your saw in terms of your skills as a coach, so that when something comes up in the middle of the coaching session, you quickly know what other tool to shift to, okay? Or when to withdraw. You know, make sure that everything that you're doing is very, very, very deliberate. You know, it's critical because we can do harm if we're not careful. You know, there's an assumption that we have expertise. So make sure if you're doing reframing, it's deliberate. And the more you coach, the more you'll identify these limiting beliefs and helping them shift, you know, doing micro shifts will become something that you just do automatically while you make a note to schedule a full reframing session with that client. So I hope that is helpful, but it's really important that it is actually deliberate so that you take them on they're safe in your hands. You already know, you know, the vehicle you're going to take them in, they're going to ask them to climb into, and the destination. So I hope you find that answer useful.
Okay. Thank you very much, Habiba. Because of time, we will take one more question, and any further questions we can send it down to, you can send it to me privately, and we'll share it on the group for conversation purpose. So the final question is from Akanimo, and he's asking, how do you determine when a client will be better served by a counselor than a coach?
I don't have a straightforward answer to that, actually. I haven't really thought about it. I just know. I think maybe let me ask my fellow trustee to help. Ade or Dudun, if you're on the line, do you think you can help with this question? Because I'll have to give it some thought. How do you know?
Where's my...
Yeah. Mr. Martins is already unmuted.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Oh, yeah. I have a similar answer to yours. I think it's where you sort of intuitively perceive you can't help the person. You sort of have a feeling that, this is beyond me. You build rapport, but you're not helping the client forward you're not able to help them out of the funk they're in, the depression or whatever it is. And you know you're not making connection. I don't know. I don't think there's any formula for it. I think it's a sensing of the limits.
Yeah. I think I can, thank you so much, Ade. I can share an experience. I have a client, very accomplished woman, admired by everybody. And she asked me to coach her on very straightforward, you know, she had a project she wanted to get through, and she wanted a coach so that she would give it required attention, you know. So very, very straightforward, more like an accountability partner than anything else. But certain things kept coming up. She had certain viewpoints, she had certain mindsets, she had certain options that she would not consider, which were logical and rational options. And when I probed, it would keep on going back to a family member, a parent. She would keep referring to a parent. She'd keep referring to a parent. And over time, it became clear that this person has a lot of deep-seated issues with that parent. And so I told her, I said, actually, I think we should pause the coaching now. I would like to recommend that she has 1 or 2 therapy sessions to discuss her parent. She said, no, she's dealt with it. She's made peace with her parents. Everything is okay now. And I said, yes, I'm not saying everything is not okay now, but I can hear, I can observe and I can hear that there are still some issues around that are still holding her back. And I'd really like her to go for 1 or 2 therapy sessions, just keep an open mind. She could afford it, yeah. And she did it for a year. And we stopped the coaching, and she came back to me 2 years later and said she had the opportunity to see a therapist for something unrelated, completely unrelated. And the entire first therapy session was about that parent. And then the next therapy session was completely about that parent. And the third one was about that parent. And she finally worked through it all, and now she was ready to resume her coaching. So there was an interregnum of 2 years before the coaching continued. But after that, I saw that we really were making progress very, very fast. So it's about using your observation skills, using your inquiry skills, trusting your intuition, and where you feel this person has real deep issues, refer. I don't know if I can. Is there anyone else who wanted?
Habiba, can I? Yes, I'd like to say something there. Many times when a person comes in and you do your introduction and you hear what it is they've come in for, and you do sort of an introduction to what coaching is. I find that many people who want counseling then say, but I want counseling, I don't actually want what you're describing. Because with coaching, you have to explain that you're not the one going to give the answers. You're going to help them hold the space such that they will come to their answers. Sometimes they say they're going to try it, and in the trying, like you were saying, they dig their heels in and they insist on having something done in a particular way. Maybe they want the session just to unburden and things like that. And then you take it to the next level. But I find usually whatever happens in that first session helps you to determine whether to send them off for coaching. And you're right, it is sensing that they do need a counselor rather than a coach.
Thank you, Dudu.
Okay, and unfortunately, we will not be able to take any further questions because of time. However, if you still have any questions that you would like, you want answers to, you can just send me a private chat on WhatsApp, and we can have a conversation about your question on the group, or I can just send it directly to Habiba so that she can answer, depending on what your preference is. And on that note, we will put this meeting to a close. I'll hand over to Janet. Janet, is there any other thing you would like to add?
Yeah, thank you everybody once again for joining us. Just to let you know once again that this is part 2 in our 5-part series. This time next Monday, we will have another topic of interest to you as a coach as well. So stay tuned and listen out for connectivity, and we would love to see you next week again as well. 6 o'clock next Monday, another topic, ways and means of supporting yourself and your client during troubled times. Thank you very much once again, everybody. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Habiba.
Bye, Habiba. Very well done. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Habiba. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Hello.
Thanks, Habiba.
Thank you.
Habiba, excellent session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wasn't sure because when you're not getting feedback, you don't know how things break down. It's just one-way traffic.
If you read the chat, you'll see lots of feedback in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you for an excellent section.
Thank you.
Happy Habiba, thanks. Nice artwork behind you.
It's true.
Okay.
All right.
Toxic.
I see you're taking your time to read. That's why I've not left the meeting yet. So that
Somebody
you
said
can
it that
take your time to
by calling some people toxic leaders, that aren't I labeling them? Yes, I am. Oh my gosh. Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Inka. Okay, good night.
All right, good night.
Hello.